John Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I will try and keep it as short as possible. I want to start by re-emphasising the point that I made in the intervention. I know that I am a bit of a Council of Europe buff, but I make no apology for saying that here. And the issue is of great importance to the Council of Europe, both in terms of keeping journalists up to the mark and making sure that they don't exploit people, but also in making sure that they are safe and that there is suitable protection for them. And the reason we're very concerned about this in the Council of Europe is one of self-preservation. There are so many journalists from around Europe that are there that there is a great need to make sure that their interests are kept up to the mark. For example, the head of the Ukrainian delegation is himself a journalist, and he and I have a lot of discussions about journalism in the Ukraine. And in addition to Azerbaijan, and in addition to the problems that we have with Russia at the moment, the Ukraine is also a place which needs to look after its journalists in a big way at the moment, where they are under threat from the Russian invasion. Of course, the Council of Europe relies on the European Convention on Human Rights, and Article 10 is the appropriate bit of that. And while it is, I hope that it is not necessary all the time to come back to the courts in order to ensure the protection of journalists, I'm very pleased to see that the European Court of Human Rights has produced a number of judgments that do thoroughly protect the rights of journalists. But the other thing that the Council has done, and I would just mention this, is that they have introduced a platform for the protection of journalism and the safety of journalists. And this platform is a public space to facilitate the compilation, processing and dissemination of information on serious concerns about media freedom and the safety of journalists in Council of Europe member states. It obviously can't go outside of those member states, but it does that within member states. And what the two things that I think that are required to do this is, one, it needs to ensure that we are all alerted on time to when journalists' safety is threatened. And it does that by putting their pictures up on a public database, and it also needs to approach that systematically, and I think it does that systematically in ensuring that every journalist who is threatened is there. It has a number of things that people need to comply with. It needs to be a serious concern with regard to media freedom. It needs to take place in the Council of Europe states. The information needs to be reliable and based on fact, and the information also needs to be in the public domain, and which I think is a sensible requirement, so that we don't have things that are half hidden. But I think with all of that, I am encouraged that this mechanism is in place that enables the safety of journalism and journalists to be protected.